So we now have everything in place to test these shoes. I've got my Stryd foot pod. I've got my original lightweight Asics Piranhas. And by lightweight, we're talking about 135 grams. We of course have the somewhat famous, possibly overhyped Nike VaporFly 4%. This is the Flynit version, weighing in at 230, so another 100 grams on top of the old Piranhas, no longer made the Piranha. And then we have the Zoom Fly Flynit, because you know, if you're going to run in these, you've got to buy another pair of these just to do your long runs. And these are, they're not that heavy. These are about 270 grams, right? Something like that. So about double the weight. The question is, does the technology in this shoe actually equate to running faster? So I'm going to take them to the gym, put them on the treadmill, use the Stryd power meter, and we're going to run at easy pace, moderate, threshold, and then a bit of a interval, and see if we can detect the difference between these shoes. The bottom line is, does lightweight overcome the extra weight and power of the design of the 4%? Let's go see. The thing with the Piranhas is they're super lightweight, 135 grams, but they're really a track shoe. They've got no padding, no structure, no heel. If you run over gravelly, sharp stones, hurt your feet. And by the end of a marathon, which I have done in them, you get beaten up pretty badly. But the way they feel is that you're wearing very light, almost invisible shoes, but it feels like you're running uphill very slightly. The Nike 4%, on the other hand, these feel like you're running in heavy shoes with a lot of padding under your feet. No problem with sharp stones. And it feels like you're running slightly downhill in these. That's like a 1 degree or more, 1.5. Anyway, it feels like you're running downhill in heavy shoes with springs. But they do feel heavy and clumpy. Louder as well. I feel like I need to lean forwards more to take advantage. It starts to feel like a better speed for the shoe. I was pretty good at this speed. Now, the Zoom Fly Flynit, it has the same downhill feel. It doesn't feel like you're going as much downhill as the VaporFly. It's also quite a bit firmer, but it still has quite a bounce. I actually quite like the feel of this. The problem is it's an even heavier shoe. I do like the Flynit top and no tongue. The heels do feel a little bit loose. I don't feel like I need to lean as far forward in these. Just for reference, barefoot at 7. Now the Piranhas feel like a lot of padding compared to this. Let's go and see what's making all the banging. That thing. Anyway, I'm not totally convinced at this point that the VaporFly 4% really did anything magic there. Have to have a look at the data. And I could certainly tell that you have to learn how to use those shoes properly, because it feels like you're running downhill. You need to be able to lean into it to get the advantage. Plus, I think you need to be running pretty fast. I could see slight heart rate benefits, I think, but I want to go and have a look at everything. At this point, 4% better? No. Not for me. Don't think so. Prove me wrong, data. So here are the results from the gym. I ran 4 rounds where I ran in the Piranha first, then the VaporFly, then the Zoom Fly, and then back to the Piranha. The reason for coming back to the Piranha was to see whether my heart rate had actually increased because of fatigue. And I was surprised it didn't really. Okay, slightly here, flat here, up a little here. So more or less the heart rate was even, slightly increasing. We did 4 sections. Easy pace, long run pace, threshold pace for me, and interval pace. And in general, the shoes seem to do better as we get faster. Heart rates across the board at 920, pretty much the same. Power, interestingly, was slightly up for the Nikes. And so what that means is that you have a power to heart rate ratio where you're getting a little bit more power for each beat of the heart. On the 820 pace, a similar thing. Actually, the VaporFly seemed to be the winner for this one. On the threshold pace, VaporFly again. More watts per heartbeat, effectively. That's what it's saying. And yeah, interestingly, on the last one, on the half mile where I was doing interval, it was actually the Zoom that won that one. But even though I'm saying they're higher, it's not very much higher, is it? I mean, if it was, well, how much higher is it? I think we need some decimal places. 0.25% higher from the worst to the best. So not 4%, but 2% maybe. So overall, you can see there is a trend towards a lower, slightly lower heart rate at a given pace compared to the Piranhas. Now it's only slight, 1.5% slightly lower, but that does translate. Well, actually, there's also slightly more power at these of these shoes as well. But it's almost, yeah, it's a couple of percent at best. Maybe it's just 1%, not even. But that does translate into the fact that you get more power, more watts per heartbeat, and that's a good thing. But it's probably me not being used to the shoe, but at the moment that power is not going towards making my pace faster because I'm running on a treadmill at a fixed pace. So the power is going where? It's actually going up into the air, literally. Because the vertical ratio is higher. Actually, not so much higher, but it does tend towards being on the higher side, certainly here. A little, the Zoom Fly, I seem to go even higher on the Zoom than the VaporFly, but overall, the vertical ratio does go higher and the ground contact time is longer as well, which could be an indication that the foam is compressing and springing. You know, that is partly what it's doing. So that might not be a bad thing. Stride length isn't really any longer because obviously I'm running at the same pace. It's more that we're going into the air. And so the amount of power which we're losing in form, meaning if you were running on the spot to gain this much height, you would have to be using this much power just to, you know, get this high in the air. So in general, we are getting this issue where the extra power that's generated is actually turning into vertical and not into stride. And so it's kind of negating the benefit of the shoe. Because if you look at these, well, I guess all of these, where's the highest? Zoom is the highest here. These are about the same. Let's say these are all high right now. High in this case is bad. In fact, I'm just going to include that one as well. So a slightly slower cadence as well, just because the shoe is a bit heavier maybe. The shoes are generating more power. The VaporFly is generating the most power per heartbeat. Right now, I'm not benefiting from that power, and I've literally only run 4 or 5 miles in these shoes because I'm using all of that extra power to go into the air. So this comes back to the idea that you need to lean into these shoes to actually use the power to go forwards, and that's something I'm going to have to try and learn. So in conclusion, here's what I found. Fundamentally, running in the Piranha shoe with no heel, no support, well, a little bit of support, it felt like you were running uphill in a very light shoe, slightly uphill in a very light shoe, compared to if you're running in the VaporFly, it feels like you are running slightly downhill in a heavy shoe. Do you want to run downhill in a heavy shoe or uphill in a light shoe? Well, it has to be said that the comfort feeling in this was pretty significant in terms of the spring and bounce. Over the course of a marathon, that's not to be underestimated. I have run a marathon in these, and once you're out past mile 18 or something, this is pretty brutal. Your feet can be pretty sore, and if you're running over any kind of gravel or sharp surfaces at all, and you feel it all the way through. So not really recommended. It is a track shoe. It's not supposed to be for marathons. The Zoom Fly was also slightly downhill in a slightly heavier shoe, but it didn't feel as downhill as the 4%. You know, the grade felt like 1.5% down. This felt more like 0.75% down. And the heavier shoe did give a firmer feel. I mean, the heavier foam. And so I actually felt more springy, but as the results showed, I'm putting more of that extra power into vertical gain than stride gain. So I get the feeling I need to learn how to run in these shoes. And it really means you have to lean forwards more to get the benefit, to convert the extra power into stride, into distance. The question is, do I have the aerobic fitness to actually do that? Because running faster, it's harder. I'm going to give it a go.